Oh, sorry. Could you please state your name?
Hi, just for the record, could you state your name and what you're studying?
Hello, could you please tell me your name?
For the purposes of the interview, can you state your name and what you're studying, please? Now, why did you choose to study at Rhodes, Miles?
Both my parents work here. I live in Grahamstown. It's just like super convenient. I mean, they don't offer the exact courses that I'd like. I'd love to have done engineering as such, but regardless, it's still a really good university. People say UCT is like the best in the country, whatever. But I rate Rhodes like really, really highly as a university.
All right. Two things that Rhodes and UCT share in common is sort of the social upheaval and the protest movement. Both have a very strong student presence in terms of politics. What do you think of the current protests happening at UCT, where students are in fact building shacks on the campus?
What do I think of them? I guess I don't have much of an opinion. I mean, it's like the issues that they are addressing are the issues that need to be addressed because they have been like sought after for a number of years, kind of thing. And I guess I can't really say that I understand where they're coming from, but I can sympathize wholeheartedly with with the protests and whatnot. I don't really understand why it's so sort of radical in a way. Well, don't want to say radical, but I mean, like building shacks on campus and like burning stuff and whatnot. I mean, I don't really understand that, I guess, but the people are doing what they need to do to get what they have been asking for years, I guess.
So tell me a little bit about your O-Week experience. What was that like for you?
Well, at first, I wanted to avoid O-Week because I'm not really a very social person. But when I started engaging and attending all of the meetings and the seminars and whatever, it was actually very enjoyable because everybody was doing it and everybody was enjoying it. And just the feeling of being included in the group was very cool. I enjoyed it.
So if you could have changed one thing, what would that have been?
If I could change one thing, I would talk to more people. At first, I was very reticent to talk to anyone because I was kind of scared. But then when I found out everybody was doing it and everybody was kind of, I would have changed talking to people. I would have talked to more people.
Your level of literature, though, does it actually extend to the more visual arts, such as fine art or perhaps movies, film?
My sister is studying art, and it's actually through her that my interest in sort of visual art and more, although she argued fine art with me, but sort of more traditional forms of art have grown. I don't know what I'm talking about, and I can't appreciate it in great complexity, but I love paintings. And television, yes, of course, I live in the 21st century. Oddly though, and I don't want to say this for all television, but my issues with TV is when it's something that you should just consume instead of participating in. So what I like about books is that you have to do half the work. So you have to understand, you have to imagine, you have to create the world that you have been given. But with television, often I find it is a lean back and consume genre. So I like watching TV that makes me work too. So when I'm supposed to sit gaping at the screen for 2 hours of my life and I don't walk away feeling like I've worked a bit, then I don't think that that's good television. But I'm really enjoying the recent trend towards sort of mini-series that are not just an hour for you to shut up and consume. I think the movement towards longer form television, not longer form as in longer periods of time, but series that creates a lot more depth and complexity, both in plot, but also possibilities for character direction, and also sort of the artistry of the genre. Yeah.
So could you tell me a little bit, were you in the SRC or?
Yeah, in 2015, I was the residence councillor on the SRC.
How was that experience?
It was fun. A lot of work happened that year, but I got a good experience out of it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Met people.
Would you do it again?
Not in my undergrad. Maybe later in life. Yeah, it's just a lot of work. So yeah.
What do you think of the SRC for this year?
I think very strong. For the people I know, they seem very strong. I don't know everyone there personally, but of the councillors I do know, they're very strong people. I couldn't have picked it better. Yeah.
Have you heard about the people who have dropped out recently?
Yeah, Ligwa and Sais, Sisasake. Yeah, I mean it's slightly disappointing that it had to happen so early in the year, but I think the circumstances are unavoidable, so there's not much you can do.
So who's going to be replacing them?
In vice president, it's Zweli, who took over from me as residence councillor last year, and he seems very strong, so I'm quite happy about that.
Do you have any intense thoughts on student government, or do you generally just let it pass you by and do you focus on your studies instead?
I don't really concentrate on what goes on up there, kind of thing. It's never really concerned me, to be honest. So yeah, I generally just tend to focus on my studies.
Why do you prefer to focus on your studies? Is it just, has it never bothered you, or?
Yeah, pretty much. It's never really bothered me, like what happens with regard to them. They don't really play much of a role, as far as I know. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the varsity the way it is. There's nothing I'd really like to change, and they're the ones doing the changing and whatnot. So, like, it doesn't really concern me how they go about their business.
Do you feel they should maybe have more of a presence, perhaps? Maybe make themselves more visible?
I don't know. They probably do, to be honest. I just don't look for them. I don't really pay attention much to what's going on. Yeah, I do have a feeling that they have made a sort of appearance around campus and whatnot, and an effort to make themselves like seen and visible, but I just don't pay much attention to that.
So in general, do you think first years go out quite a lot in O week, or is it too much of an intimidation thing?
No, I think they go out quite frequently. Like a lot of the older students actually encourage them to go out and have fun with them and whatever. So I think it does happen quite frequently, and a lot of them go out a lot during a week. But just as an expeditionary thing, like figure out what's happening and where everything is. And
So for yourself now, you said you went out on Friday. What was that experience like?
well, it was kind of weird because I come from Stellenbosch, where people care a lot, and we went to the Rat and Parrot first, and it became very noisy, very loud, like very busy very quickly because it started raining. And then we went out to Friars, which was different. I wasn't, well, from the name, I was expecting something different, but also very loud, very noisy. And then we went to Monastery, I think, but only for a short while. But it was fun, but I'm not really an outgoing type of person, so it was good experiencing it, but like I'm not really going to go out soon again.
So what do you think Rhodes' reputation is with going out and that sort of thing?
Well, before coming to Rhodes, everybody was like, when I would say I was going to Rhodes, they would say, okay, so you're going to drink a lot and whatever and have a lot of parties and stuff. So I think in general, Rhodes is known for its party culture. But coming here, it's actually not that bad. Like if you went to Marty's or Tux or whatever, it would be just the same. So I think it's obviously a reputation, but it's not really that bad.
Do you think there's a particular pressure on first years to go out?
Perhaps from their peers, but not really from other students, though, like the older students. Yeah, peer-based pressure, but not. It's not bad, but it is there.
Important is the SRC to the students?
Well, you see, the SRC is important to the students if the students engage. So if the students invest in having SRC, because any elected official's power derives from their students, and one of the problems I had in the past was that after being elected, sort of interest disappeared, and so then the SRC is useless because you can't go into a meeting and say the students want this if you're not being told by the students want this. So the SRC's importance depends on how much the students invest in the SRC, and but if the students invest in the SRC, which I think they really should, then the SRC is incredibly powerful.
And then a lot of people like books, literature. They absolutely adore reading, but they sort of keep it as a hobby and then pursue, other things as sort of their primary means of income, for lack of a better term. What would you say are your hobbies then, as a reverse?
God. I read a lot. Yeah, that takes up a lot of my time. But I like running, which comes as something of a surprise visually as me as a person. I'm not very good at it, but I really enjoy it. I spend a hell of a lot of time on the beach. I did really try surfing, but it's just not who I am as a person. My center of gravity just does not lend itself towards that. No, I don't really have many hobbies, unfortunately.
All right. Lastly, if you had to recommend one book to read before I die.
More than one, but one book to read before you die. No idea. See, it depends what you want. It depends on because books, you respond differently to books depending on where you're coming from. So who you are and what issues you're facing and the things that you don't understand or the things that you want to work out or the things that you care about, you bring that to a text. And so different texts will help you. So I often find myself recommending a book to someone when they're like, oh, this is so hard, or I'm grappling with this, or I have an interest in this particular thing, then I can recommend a book. But I don't think can be one definitive book that answers the entirety of your life. Yeah, I would resist the nature of that question.
And what's it like being in Oppidum?
It's actually fun. It was hard at the beginning because now I have to wash my own clothes and to make my own food and whatever. But I think I'd actually prefer doing this because I went to hostel a lot during high school, and the freedom you have being in Oppidum is much greater than having to stay in Reyes and having curfews and eating at this time and whatever. So I enjoy being in Oppidum.
So you have some experience then being in Oppidum. What about the distance? Are you quite far from campus, or is that not an issue for you?
No, it's not that far. It's just behind P.A. Olivier, so it's just up the hill. It's quite close.
Do you think there should be transport for Oppidums in general, or do you think they should just make their own way?
Well, one friend, Jan Disa, lives quite far. He lives in the township, which is quite inopportune. He can't really stay late or study late or whatever if he has to go home. So I think there has to be a regular transport system. But I do think they have an Oppidum bus which goes at regular intervals. So they do have this, but I do think it is necessary.
So how do you think that the students can get motivated to be more involved?
I have absolutely no idea. I think I just always have been involved. I don't really know how. I think also just talking about issues that other than talking about issues that are relevant to students, I don't really know how you can get involved. Fees, obviously, last year was the prime example.
And if similar protest action was to spark on Rhodes University, with students perhaps building shacks in and around the library, or impacting your daily life and your ability to learn, would you be as sympathetic, or do you have different thoughts?
Yeah, well, no, I think I would be as sympathetic. I guess I just don't have the problem myself, so I wouldn't actually, as selfish as it sounds, I wouldn't actually really partake that much in the protest, but I would completely understand what the problem is and why people are doing these things.
What would you recommend to the SRC for this year in terms of problems that you faced that they can change and make better this year?
I don't know, really. I think, maybe not in terms of problems I face, but just in general, your inbuilt moral compass is usually right, and you kind of know what to do with that. Don't second guess yourselves, but do listen to criticism. So go with your gut, but don't let your gut rule you, if you know what I'm saying. And otherwise, just look, enjoy yourselves, if that makes sense, even when you're doing serious stuff. Don't remember that, like, life is. Don't get bogged down in your work because you'll be miserable, and just you do you kind of thing. You got elected because you were you, so remember that.
How did you manage with all the responsibility?
Look, you do time management. I mean, it's not easy, but you won't. It's not impossible. It's very it's very important to know what you're getting into going in. It's not easy, and you need to remember that it's going to be difficult, and you're going to struggle to get to balance everything. But it's not impossible to balance everything, and remembering to keep that balance is very important. Yeah.